Good evening. We'll begin with Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Garrick?
Here.
Pepcorn?
Here.
Preston?
Here.
Strand?
Here.
Mahoney?
Here. We just had an executive session, and there is a suggested motion. Dave, you want to read it?
I'd love to read it, but I don't have it in front of me, so if it does, I apologize, or maybe John wants to, he's a better reader, but, okay, here we go, the suggested motion. I move to approve the settlement participation forms for the distributors for Janssen Pharmaceuticals as presented, and to authorize the mayor to execute the same for filing with the court.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Announcements. Health. During the upcoming holidays, COVID-19 vaccine clinics will not be held on December 24th or December 31st. The COVID-19 testing sites will be closed also on those days. Upcoming vaccine clinics and test site hours of operation are posted on the Fargo Cast Public Health website. The library, as usual, is busy. December online book party is December 16th on the library's Facebook page. It is a book club and participants can read whatever they want. The librarians will share reading suggestions and discuss what they have been reading. And also the library's mitten trees are up for the third season at each of the library locations. Donations of newly purchased, handmade, or gently used cold weather gear such as mittens, gloves, hats, scarves, socks are being accepted for the trees. Planning. Year-to-date building permits in the city are 743 million, the second highest ever. The highest was when the new Sanford Hospital was constructed. The third highest was in 2020 with permits of 720 million. Tonight we have two videos introduced by the Comms GA team. The first details are the December ribbon cutting jointly held by the City of Fargo and Xcel Energy for the new electric vehicle charger at the City Hall West parking lot. Sustainability and Resiliency Committee also assisted in dedication of its grant-funded project. The second video showcases the Fargo's PD's implementation of body-worn camera project, which assures accountability for the public, our officers, and the media. Directly reflection of the FDPD value of professionalism and forward-looking element of its mission. This project is comprehensive investment in our ongoing commitment to transparent public safety and trust between law enforcement and the public. Go ahead. The commitment to forward thinking of renewable energy and environmental stewardship is fantastic, and will push the city to tackle future projects like this, which improve the community's sustainability efforts. This charger is representative of the forward-thinking mindset of the city and its people.
You know, things are about to change fast. You know, the groundwork's been laid. You know, EVs are on the next frontier on the clean energy transition. As we increase the amount of renewables, we also recognize that we envision 1.5 million EV vehicles across our 8-state region in the near future.
This charger will serve residents and the visitors of City Hall for years to come.
With the current trends of law enforcement, body cameras have been a recent hot topic. I know that that was a priority for the chief when he came in. We've decided to go forward with it, obviously, like a lot of agencies have. I think it's going to be a good thing.
There's a lot of different things that these cameras can do, and they can sync very easily with our in-car system as well as the software with which we manage the videos.
I really like wearing the camera, and I know that there are other officers in the department that have been wanting a camera for quite a long time so that people can see exactly what we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
The body camera can be activated manually by the individual officer, sergeant, whoever's using it. We also have what's known as a signal sidearm. So that is a sensor that's been placed on every officer's holster that once the weapon is removed from there, if the body camera is turned on, it will activate the body camera. Same thing with our new tasers. An added benefit to that is if there are 2 or 3 other officers here and I activate my taser or draw my sidearm, it sends out a signal to activate the other body cameras anywhere, depending on line of sight obstructions, but within 30 to 200 feet. So the body camera has what's called a pre-event record, and so the body camera, if it's turned on, is always, they call it buffering, meaning that it's always recording. So it continually records, again, unless it's turned off, put in sleep mode. Once I activate the camera or a signal activates the camera, it will go back 30 seconds and that will become part of the video. So whatever happened 30 seconds prior to the camera being activated will be part of the video. The only difference is that 30 seconds will not have any audio to it.
As soon as I turn my lights to stage 2, where it's the front and the back lights, or the siren, which is stage 3, my body camera turns on. And so it captures me getting out of my car, it captures 30 seconds prior to me turning it on, my interaction with the citizen. What surprised me, and it was a good surprise, is just how easy it is to go back and review an incident.
It comes down to the operation of the camera being a habit and being a part of, again, your muscle memory when going to a call. It's stepping out of the car and just automatically turning that on.
So the expectation will be any type of enforcement, public interaction, that a body camera will be used. Of course, there could be confidential settings, medical settings, those types of things where we don't want them to be used. But for the most part, we want them to be used. That's why we have them, for transparency, accountability, and to show what we are doing.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I so move.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the November 29th, 2021 regular meeting?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, item 1 through 50?
So move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. We have a presentation today of a check from the Fargo Lions Club. Jane Pettiger, is she here? Yes, she is. I'll always come for a check.
I just want to precede this by indicating that I'm presenting this on behalf of the Fargo Lions Club, but also on behalf of the larger community. Everyone in this community is a fan of public art. Everyone in this community is well aware of the efforts of sandbagging, and we want to make sure that the spirit of the sandbagger art structure is lit up and visible and well maintained over the years. And so we've raised money beyond the cost of it to present to the city to do those things. And so I will do that, and I'll move into position we'll go over in front where I know Greg wants us, so that there's good photo opportunities to present the check. So there's $90,000 for the city to use to upkeep the spirit of the Sandbagger Art Monument.
You can endorse it. Just so the public knows, initially that started as that they were going to raise $60,000. So whenever you get this final check of $90,000, it's very helpful for the upkeep and what goes on in our sandbaggers. We have one virtual speaker today. We're into the resident comments. People have asked sometimes, I have a business in Fargo, but I live in a different community. Can I please speak? And the rules that the commission had agreed upon is if you're a Fargo resident, you can speak at the resident comment time, but we have not allowed for a business owner to do that. At some time we could have a policy discussion, but for right now, just so people understand, the reason that if you live in Moorhead, have a business in Fargo, you're not allowed to speak in the resident speaking is because you're not a resident. So Elijah Karna is on again today. Elijah? I think virtual? No? She's not on, okay. Melissa Lindell?
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor Mahoney, and those in attendance. My name is Melissa Lindell. I have been a licensed massage therapist with the state since February of 2017. I do want to point out right away that I'm late to the table, so to speak, as regards to this ordinance, as I just very recently moved back to Fargo. With that said, I have had an opportunity to read through the revised proposed ordinance as well as review the videos of the previous meeting where this was discussed. I must say it left me with far more questions than answers. At this time, I also want to point out that I am not against an ordinance for massage establishments within the city of Fargo. In fact, I welcome yearly inspections and greater oversight of our industry as our Board of Massage is unable to do so. I am, however, opposed to this ordinance as it stands today. Late last week, I sent each of you an email with a list of questions that came up for me while reading the revised ordinance and the sections of the ordinance each pertains to. It is my opinion the current language of this ordinance leaves too much up to the interpretation by all those involved and leaves far too many unanswered questions, all of which I detailed in my list sent to each of you as well as the massage therapy community. I feel strongly that further clarification is needed before this ordinance is passed. I also feel very strongly that with further clarification, Fargo can be a great example of a proper working ordinance, one that protects the licensed massage therapists while giving the city the authority it needs to shut down establishments that offer illicit services and give the profession of massage therapy a bad connotation. I will not take the time here to go through the numerous questions or areas needing revision or defining, as it will take up too much valuable time. I simply ask you as a city commission to vote to table this ordinance until such time it is revised to offer clear, concise regulations for massage therapists, massage therapy establishments, the health department, and law enforcement to follow, until such time as it gives ample time for massage therapy businesses and licensed massage therapists to follow the correct process to become licensed with the city and to be able to abide by the regulations set forth within the ordinance. I urge you all to take the necessary actions tonight to allow for this ordinance to be further revised rather than pushing it through without the proper definitions, concise regulations, and overall greater understanding for those it affects. I thank you for your time, not only in hearing me today, but also for the time and efforts that have been put forth in writing and putting this together, this ordinance. Thank you.
Brandon Krieger.
Commission. And ironically, I'm glad I've come here because I have the opposite position. So a good debate here. So I'm here to talk about the massage therapist ordinance tonight. I feel it's an issue that has been overcomplicated from the original purpose. Going back to the first informational meeting about a month ago, I don't think the community has given those individuals who put in the time and work to create the ordinance enough credit. They are thorough in their research and put forward a solid ordinance to be passed. I strongly suggest anyone who is invested to rewatch the presentation back in mid-November. This isn't about labeling an industry. It has never been about that. It has always been about providing extra protection to Fargo residents and possible victims of human trafficking. It is about setting a standard and quality that if I go to an unlicensed massage establishment, the environment and quality will be consistent and up to standard. This is about the protection of the consumer and the potential reduction of human trafficking. The cost for a license is minimal, and as it was pointed out, cheaper than the tattoo and body piercing business. Commissioner Garrett asked for numbers last week, and along with the pack that I handed out, one set of numbers came to, that you see on your desks. One set of numbers I found from the North Dakota Human Trafficking Task Force was there were 482 victims of human trafficking between 2015 and 2019, 349 adults and 133 children. For me, the statistic is above 1, so that's enough for me for this a type of ordinance like this to be passed. One question I would like to ask that's not addressed would be, does the ordinance cover the service of massage therapy or just the business that promotes massage as a focus? In 2019, a Bismarck Dickinson business was found to be human trafficking and hosting illicit prostitution rings and spas that offered massages. The spas were a Hong Kong spa and then the Tokyo Q spa. One was in Bismarck, one was in Dickinson. And it was only discovered due to an employee being willing to come forward to speak with the police, which led to an undercover investigation. Other than that, though, have a great Christmas, and we'll see you guys after that. Thank you.
Keith Coates.
Good evening to everybody in attendance. My name is Keith Coates. I've been a massage therapist in Fargo for the last 5 years. I'm currently employed at Massage Envy, and I'm here to speak out in support of this ordinance. One thing that was brought up by the commission at the last meeting was an excellent question. How do we know this will work to curb human trafficking? Excellent question. This ordinance is based off of the St. Cloud massage ordinance that was passed in 2019. 5 months later, the St. Cloud Times came out with their article following up on what St. Cloud's police and public health were able to do with this tool. Actions taken. Quiet and Serene Massage had its license revoked after an investigation found illicit sexual contact was occurring at the business. Oriental Massage had its license revoked after the owner was charged with 3 felonies, including promoting prostitution and engaging in the sex trafficking of an individual. Asian Day Spa had its license renewal request denied by the city. The reason for the denial included evidence of illicit activity, areas being used for living purposes, and illegal plumbing alterations. Chang's Massage was suspended for 2 weeks because an unlicensed massage therapist was working there. Yan Hong Lin was sentenced in May to 4 years in prison promoting prostitution. Lin was the former registered owner of Riverwood Massage and Bodyworks. St. Cloud's public health and police were given the tool to succeed in going after these businesses. There's no reason to think that Fargo's public health and police wouldn't display the same level of competency. The trafficking owners and the parlor owners are watching this right now. And what they want to see is this ordinance not get passed, because that gives the message that they can not only continue their business of sexual exploitation, human trafficking, prostitution, but that Fargo will give the okay of, we're not going to go the extra mile of going after you guys, and they'll continue to grow. Massage therapists, it's a $100 business fee. That is a drop in the bucket for a fee. That is nothing. And if that goes to curb this issue, I say it is extremely worth it, and you guys should reconsider. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Richard Thomas.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks for this opportunity to speak. My name is Richard Thomas, Fargo resident. I speak for myself and for park users in the city of Fargo, and for the several hundred signers of the petition that I turned in earlier this year with people with concerns for safety and wanting to eliminate the hunt in the occupied Fargo parks. One thing we do know is that the park users don't feel comfortable with this program continuing. Now, a week ago or a couple weeks back, you guys voted to discontinue the program, but now it's on hold. The first study that was done this summer was to look into the safety of the program, and that study really did not address the issue. Now a second study is being done, and I'm not against studies, just as long as they provide real data and that they're not put together with the idea of collecting anecdotal data to justify a conclusion that's already been made. There has been no real deer count done since 2013. the deer that some data has been collected by the hunters that are part of the program. But this data that's collected, it says right in the information each year, is that it's not necessarily accurate data because a hunter can count the same deer time after time after time each time they're in the parks. So we want real data. We're led to believe that the city will be overrun and that motorcyclists will hit deer. Do we have any data on that? Most of the deer are found within a couple blocks of the river channel. These are residential areas. And usually speed limit is 25 miles an hour. So I don't remember any motorcyclists hitting any deer, but there are a lot of motorcycle accidents. So maybe we should look into a helmet regulation of some type if we're truly concerned about motorcyclist safety. We talk about protecting the trees and the diversion. Well, the diversion isn't built. The trees haven't been planted. That's many years out. Iowa City was brought up. 500 deer were taken out. 80 to 90% of the deer population. Some people there still complain about the deer. They eliminated the archery program prior to that because they said it was not effective. They still have a program now. They say it's still not effective. We need alternatives, educating the population to not feed the deer, use fencing, plant trees that are less likely to be eaten by deer. The one thing we know for sure is that the people don't want hunting in the parks. Thank you so much.
Julie Miller.
Hi, commissioners, mayor, everyone in attendance. I'm a licensed massage therapist. I've been practicing for 20 years. I have a script that I wrote to read, but after what was just said, my issue is the victims. And as of the last administration, these victims can't even get a T4, I think it's called visa, to stay here. So if this city doesn't have a way to help the victims, how is that success? We can shut down these storefronts. Massage therapists, none that I know, care about the $100. They care about the way the ordinance is written. The ordinance is written to shut storefronts. That creates more violence to the victims that are underground. If we create more violence to victims, how does it help? It doesn't. And I think that we've been consistently threatened about $100 that no one cares about. I don't know, I can't speak for what everyone cares about, but I can speak for what I care about. And what I think matters to these victims is that we give them a voice, that we as a community help them get out of modern day slavery in human trafficking and sex trafficking. They can't get out without us. We need to have speakers that can go in there and talk to them so that they trust law enforcement, so that they trust us as a community to keep themselves safe and give them an opportunity here and wherever it is that we're putting in these ordinances all across the United States. Until those things are in place for them to be safe and not go back into trafficking, how can we call this success? Do we not care about humans, whether they're American or not American? Do we not care that there are buyers that make this business available? That's what this is about. If we can use massage establishment ordinance to help them accomplish these things, that's awesome. And I am for that. Thank you.
Margaret Messner, or Messmer.
Hi, Commissioners, Mayor. My name is Margaret Mesmer. I am here to oppose the massage therapy establishment ordinance. I have been a licensed massage therapist in the area for 6 years. This ordinance addresses licensing of massage therapy establishments in Fargo. The intent of this ordinance is to curb or stop sex trafficking. The ordinance does nothing to stop sex trafficking. There are local, state, and federal law enforcement officials that should be targeting any sort of nefarious activity that occurs in our community. This is not just a massage therapy issue, it is a city issue. Questions I would ask you to think about before saying yes. Has the Fargo Police Department provided any data that shows sex trafficking is a huge problem in the massage therapy industry? Is there any data provided that shows where sex traffickers have been prosecuted in the city of Fargo? To my knowledge, the answers are zero. And this ordinance does nothing to address that. If the city is serious about curbing out nefarious activity, it takes targeted law enforcement to fight this problem. We don't have any ordinances for doctors or pharmacists to target drug dealers. So this ordinance is not going to yield any long-term benefit to preventing nefarious activity. It will initially close down non-licensed operating brick and mortars in Fargo, but it will push potential traffickers deeper into home operations, which is specifically excluded from this ordinance. This ordinance, as it's written, shows a lack of understanding of the massage therapy industry in Fargo. Thank you.
Christopher Cole.
Hey, I'm Christopher Cohn, a Fargo resident, and going back to what Richard was talking about, the wildlife management program. I also wanted to point out that there was already a study group, and the point of the study group was to look at all the data and figure out what could be done with the program. The Parks District was included in that. Game and Fish was included. And at the last meeting when I sat here, now we're told by two commissioners that they want to do that again. They want to get the Park District and Game and Fish in on the conversation and talk about it. Well, we already had that. So this is nothing new. This is just like a 2.0. So what's missing from all of this is any data. Well, there isn't any data because there hasn't been a census done since 2012, 2013 by Game and Fish, the aerial surveys that they do. And the police don't keep track of vehicle deer collisions, so there's no data on that. But I've lived here 16 years. I've never even seen a deer when I've been driving. I see deer when I ride my bike through some of the river parks. That's the only place I see deer. I do once in a while see them in someone's yard near the river. That's not the end of the world. I don't even see them eating landscaping. They're just looking for migratory routes out of the parks, I think. But the other point is that the Park District and Game and Fish, they've already made it clear that they do not want to manage the program. So going back to another 90 days to look at it, that's not going to change anything. No one is willing to manage this program going forward. Police aren't going to, and these other two groups are not going to, and that's not changing. And as far as the safety issue, as we have two commissioners here that say there are no safety concerns regarding the use of deadly weapons in the parks, and give no reasons why. So if that's true, how about if one or both of you take over liability in case any accident does happen in the future, since you know that no accident will happen in the future? Take over liability yourself, but you're not going to do that because you don't know if there's going to be an accident or not. Thank you.
We have our virtual back on. Anjali Karna.
Hi. Great. Hi, my name is Anjali Karna, and I'm speaking tonight on the proposition in place to prevent sex trafficking within the massage industry. I'm a second-generation Asian immigrant myself, and this subject is important to me because I have witnessed firsthand what sheer dehumanization Asian women are capable of facing, so much so that they can be trafficked in plain sight, and we face opposition to correctional laws that could literally prevent this issue with urgency. I feel like the reality we need to be accountable for right now is that currently, as it stands, there are likely women within a mile radius currently facing the experience of sexual slavery. Unlike what other people have said, there have been investigations done nearby. I think Keith Coates' examples about Minnesota are a great example. And the reason we need a law like this is to prevent access from customers, not necessarily the hosts themselves. These plain sight businesses are a big issue. I think we need to understand that there's an uncomfortable truth and an important one to claim ownership of here in the FM area, that we need to place solutions before City Commission urgently. Now I understand that there are concerns from licensed practitioners here about fines, extra licensure, but I think there is an opportunity to evaluate our own internal biases If you weigh the pros of one side and the cons of the others, we need to be aware of who most deserves our advocation. With that, I urge you to view this proposition with the weight of a family member of a woman who's been trafficked. If it was your kid, your sister, your friend, there's serious need of a genuine and urgent solution, and just cutting off these public sources where people know where to go because of the stereotypes that unfortunately are oftentimes true would do a lot to prevent sex trafficking. Thanks.
That closes our resident comment section. We'll go to the public input opportunity. Transfer of payment in lieu of tax exemption pilot for Woodrow Wilson doing business at Greystone Capital Woodrow for 1222 4th Avenue North and 315 University Avenue North. Jim Gilmore to explain.
This is a recommendation from the tax exempt review. Mike, no, okay. This is a recommendation from the Tax Exempt Review Committee to approve a transfer of a previously approved payment in lieu of taxes incentive. Anytime there's a new ownership in a business and it's a pilot incentive, you need to approve that transfer. This particular tax exemption was approved, I believe, about 4 years ago. It included Renaissance Zone exemptions for a period of years. They're in their last year of that, and this will then follow up with the pilot that was approved. There's no change in the exemption. It's merely a transfer of the ownership. You had also approved the transfer of this property a couple years ago. However, that sale was not completed, and so DFI Woodrow is still the owner of the property and wants now to sell the property to Greystone Capital Woodrow. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak to this transfer? Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak on it? Not. I'll close the public hearing. Any questions, Mr. Gilmer? Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Preston.
need to declare conflict of interest again. We're a small investor in the DFI fund, so.
Okay. What's the feeling of the commission? Did she vote or not?
I think it's up to her.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Garrick?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item B, transfer of Class A alcoholic beverage license from 518 properties to 518 properties to 518 properties doing business Summit Restaurant and Nightclub to be located at 4554 7th Avenue South. Steve Sprague to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. It's going to be a little confusing when you just read it, but really what it is we're putting the final chapter on the Africa Club transfer, and we had said back in late October we'll approve this, but on the condition that you come back with the manager named and the business concept. And so the applicants have done that, and as well as they are now naming the business Summit Restaurant and Nightclub. And so those three things are the changes from what we had seen late in October. The manager's named. We did get a chance to look at the business plan, and then they've named the business itself. And it did go to Liquor Control today at noon at a special meeting, and the Liquor Control Board voted unanimously to approve it.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this transfer?
Wes Villome, he, him, his pronouns. I'd like to start by saying long live George Floyd and Anyue Magic. Steve said just now that this is the final chapter of Club Africa, but it's definitely far from the final chapter. I'd be remiss if I didn't stand here to say that the failure of Club Africa is the failure of this entire city. For being as diverse as Fargo is, Fargo lacks diversity in its leadership, and it also lacks diversity as far as Black business owners. Club Africa was an opportunity for this city to show that Black business owners can thrive here. It was clear from the beginning that Club Africa needed help. They didn't get the help, and then they burned. And now we have, a white business owner taking over Club Africa. And so I would say that this is not the end. I think something that you guys need to be mindful of is what the business plan is going forward. Because what can happen here if they continue, let's say that they try and cater previous business owners or bars have opened up, white folks didn't really go to JT Cigarros, they all closed down. And that spot has been able to show, Club Africa did, that Black folks are going to visit and frequent that place as a nightclub. They like those numbers. They want to replicate that success. Now, something did happen. Something violent did happen. Someone died in the other parking lot. But they still like the business model. And so what they're going to try to do is replicate it under a different name while avoiding the stigma of what happened previously. Well, how do they do that? If the new owners and the new club they invite Black people in and they over police it to avoid anything happening in news and headlines, you're gonna have a lot of people of color ending up at Cass County Jail. That's gonna be a detriment again to the Black community. So I'm encouraging you guys to keep an eye out on what the business plan is. If they're gonna invite Black people back in to frequent that place or cater to us, to ensure that this establishment does not do any further harm to the Black community. Please ensure that it's not over policed and we don't have a ton of Black people going to jail every weekend while we have some white business owners making a ton of money off of us. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? That will close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. C, a plat of the radio addition, a plat of part of the northeast quarter of Section 5, Township 138 North, Range 49 West of the 5th Principal Meridian at 5702 52nd Avenue South. Approval recommended by Planning Commission. And we have Donald Cress, but he forgot his Christmas sweater.
We got the tie, though. It's the holly
thank
tie.
you.
Next time, sir. Next time.
Good.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress with the Department of Planning and Development. Item 53C is the radio addition down here on 52nd Avenue South and Veterans Boulevard. This large area here that was so named for the radio towers, the 4 large radio towers that were originally there. I believe it was KFNW was the radio station. Those towers have since been removed. This property is currently, there's a couple more views of the property there. It's a large 10-acre property, currently undeveloped. The property is zoned GC, General Commercial. No zone changes proposed. The plat itself creates 10 lots for commercial development. There is no direct access to any of these lots off of 52nd Avenue or Veterans Boulevard. Some of the lots are served by a private driveway easement arrangement, which happens occasionally in commercial developments. Full plat looks like that. Staff has received no public comment about this project other than some requests for information about it, which we responded to. The applicant, Nate Volmuth of Goldmark, is with us this evening and they wish to address the Commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this plat? Anybody wanting to speak? If not, I close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Commissioner Preston, do I have a second?
Second.
Garrick, second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, sir.
COVID-19 update. Desi Fleming?
Yep, I'm here. Good
Okay.
evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
COVID cases are still plateauing with about 697 active cases in Cass County now and a little over 2,200 in the state. Testing numbers remain fairly low, especially on the weekends. Currently, there are 165 people hospitalized with COVID, and hospital capacity remains pretty tight for staffed beds due to high census locally and across the state. I think both health systems had a couple beds in ICU and a couple regular beds. Deaths for Cass total 274 with close to 2,000 statewide. This past week, we hit a pretty grim milestone in the United States, reaching 800,000 deaths from COVID. The Kaiser Foundation released a report estimating that 163,000 deaths since June likely would have been prevented with vaccination. Tomorrow marks the 1-year anniversary of COVID vaccine being available, of which in Cass County there have been just under 240,000 vaccines given. Pfizer vaccine booster has now been approved for 16 to 17-year-olds that received the initial Pfizer series. The Omicron variant has been identified in 30 states, but realistically is in more. It has not yet been identified from sequencing or wastewater in North Dakota. Because of the increased transmissibility, experts anticipate Omicron quickly becoming the dominant strain for new cases across the US as it is now in Europe. Data from the UK is analyzing how the Pfizer vaccine is protecting from the Omicron variant. Effectiveness after the 2-dose series was around 30 to 40%, and effectiveness after the booster increased to 70 to 80%, which strongly points to the need for that booster for optimal protection. Also, a study from South Africa where there are low vaccination rates but high rates of previous infection found that reinfection rates were 3 times higher with Omicron compared to Delta. So that reliance on natural immunity only to safeguard us against this new variant does not appear to provide adequate protection. Local vaccination traffic is beginning to slow. We're getting mainly booster traffic at this point with a handful of first and second doses. We've met with Sanford, Essentia, and Family Healthcare to discuss vaccination operations going forward, and all have pretty much transitioned much of those operations into their normal activities. Fargo Cass Public Health at the end of December will transition our COVID vaccination mass clinics into our immunization clinic where appointments would be needed at that time. The health systems are comfortable with this plan as they already moved to this and feel they have opportunities within their system for people to make appointments or go to walk-in clinics. They also have extended hours and some weekend availability, and there's 71 providers still in Cass County for plenty of vaccine opportunities. Our testing site remains very busy, and we continue to extend our lease on the building on a month-by-month basis. The intent when we first started the testing site was to fill a gap for those who would have travel requirements, but we very quickly turned into one of the main sites to test the general public, and that's still the case. The challenge with this is sustainability and staffing, so we will continue to evaluate and monitor for any changes needed going forward. Fargo Cass Public Health, health systems, and the North Dakota Department of Health continue to encourage vaccination and boosters through messaging, but these are difficult times for any call to action. Much of the population has been desensitized to the potential dangers of COVID or new variants as we have been in this heightened state for almost 2 years. Despite that, we will continue to remain consistent in the hopes of being heard and promote those mitigation strategies of vaccination for all eligible, along with booster doses, masking recommendations for indoor crowded spaces, and testing early for exposures to help slow transmission and lessen the human impacts from COVID. I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any commissioner questions? Commissioner Preston.
Desi, with the sources that you have access to, I know we're hearing kind of possibly that the Omicron, however you pronounce it, variant is a little bit less severe. Is that still the case that from the sources you're seeing?
Yeah, I think I don't believe it's less severe for unvaccinated people. Okay. I think for those who have been at least have that initial vaccination, and especially those that have been boosted, are doing quite well at staying out of hospitals for that. I think we're still learning, we're still receiving data from where they're experiencing it much more than we have been. And so we will hopefully learn more things every day as we go forward.
So the hospitalizations and deaths, we don't know yet exactly.
Those haven't been, those seem to be much less.
Okay.
When you look at just the standard data of that, whether or not that's a result of vaccine or whether that's a result of the variant being less, I don't know if they know that specifically.
Any other questions? Thank you, Desi. Happy
Thanks.
holidays to your team.
Thank you.
Item 55, recommendation to approve the 2022 capital improvement plan and the 2023 utility replacement street reconstruction projects as presented. Brenda Derrick to explain, and I think Troy Hall is going to go through some water questions that Commissioner Strand brought up last meeting.
Good afternoon, evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm back again with the CIP improvement plan, looking for having a recommendation of approval. And then we'd also like to address some of the questions that we had 2 weeks ago. We've done a little bit of research, and Troy's up here to assist me in regards to the lead water service informational. So a couple of the CIP questions, I want to address a couple that are not, that have kind of come up just recently. So in your proposed CIP, what you'll find is we have added the removal of the North Broadway Bridge and then also the addition of an alley paving project. And then also, I had some conversation with Commissioner Garrig today about there are no prairie dog funds in our CIP. It is, we know that we won't be getting into those buckets for the 2022 year. Hopefully, as we address and evaluate the 2023 CIP, we'll be able to see if we're going to be able to get into that full allocation of the prairie dog funds. And then upon the allocation of those full funds, that's when they would go towards offsetting those assessments as approved in the 2019 infrastructure funding policy. And so that's why you don't see any in this year, and then we'll be evaluating it again next year. Another question we had was about the environmental influences on concrete and asphalt. This is kind of a tricky one. We tried to do as much research as we could in the last couple of weeks. As you can see, there's a lot that goes into the concrete and asphalt. We've got the different elements of the cement, and then we have the aggregate and the water and the concrete. We have the asphalt cement, which is a byproduct of the oil refinery, and then aggregate. So in the cement, you have a lot of raw materials that are mined. You've got heat associated with the making of both asphalt and concrete. As far as concrete, we have a high solar reflectance. With the dark asphalt, there's a low solar reflectance. So there isn't a real good path on one is much more environmentally friendly than the other. It's obvious in reading the articles, though, that the industry is trying to work towards things that would make them more environmentally friendly. We're just not there yet. One of the things we practice here, and the industry practices, is that we do recycle both our concrete and our asphalt. And so if we do have a project where we're removing the concrete, we do recycle it and reuse it within our gravel base. If it's if it's asphalt, then we'll reuse it in the mix, and then we'll also mix it with the gravel and reuse it with the gravel base also. And then one of the other items that we found in our research too is our Pci ratings that we talk about, and the impact they have also on, gas usage, and then increasing and reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. So the higher our rankings, the smoother the roadway, less fuel you're using, and less greenhouse gas emissions. And then the lower that PCI rating can increase that. And that's kind of looking at an average and then kind of going up and down from there. Next, I'll have Troy visit about and update you guys on our lead water services.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Mayor, Commissioners. Yeah, we had a question on lead service lines last time, so thought we'd go through some of the testing results and in Fargo. Yeah, let's see if, so we actually, with the lead and copper rule, we actually began testing in 1992. So we've done over 850 samples in 14 different rounds of testing since 1992. Yeah, let's see if here, okay. Yeah, so with the sampling, and so this green line right here, that's what's the EPA action level? That's 15 parts per billion of lead in drinking water. The Fargo results are this blue line right here. So the dots, what happened was in the early 90s, we did 3 different rounds of testing. Things went well. It was established that we were well below the EPA action level of 15 parts per billion. So from 1996 all the way to 2017, we went on a reduced monitoring by the state. So they lowered because we weren't having an issue. In 2019, we started up the membrane water treatment plant, and that, when we did that, they considered that a new water source, so they put us back on more monitoring yet. And we've actually had the best test results we've had with the membrane plant online. So our level, what the EPA calls, it's called a 90% level. That's what they look at. So like in the first rounds of testing, we do 100 samples, and the highest 10 they would take out, and then they would look at that sample, the 90th percentile, and that's how they consider the calculation. So like in 2021 here, this summer, our 90% sample was like 2.4 parts per billion, way under the 15 parts per billion. That's the action level. So we're trending towards reduced monitoring again. 2 things to point out. Initially on the graph, we're a little bit higher. Then we brought on the 1997 water treatment plant, results improved. Then we brought the membrane plant online, and results improved again. So that I've spent a little bit of time on that side, but that's an important one. We're way below the EPA levels that are being looked at and regulated on. And then with sample collection, one thing about this rule is it needs certain conditions. It needs to be called a stagnant water condition. So the samples are actually collected by the residents in their homes. So we distribute the bottles and they collect it. Communications team and our water plant staff, they actually produced a sampling video, because it's really important how they collect samples. So they produced a sampling video in 2020. So we asked the residents that collect them, I'll watch that video. And then another thing that's important to note is that when we do the testing, per EPA rules, 50% of the samples come from homes with lead services, 50% come from homes where there's lead solder in their home plumbing built in the 80s. And then we do have an outside lab that conducts all of our analysis. We just send them and have them test it. So I know last meeting we talked about if homeowners want their water tested, that they can call the water treatment plant. What we would actually do, we can give them numbers or contact information for some private labs that'll actually do the testing. It's like $25 or $18 depending on what you go to, but we would just defer them to a certified lab. And then getting into in addition to the lead testing lead sampling or lead testing we do, the state and then EPA require us to go out. We do every 2 weeks. We do a whole list of things. I won't go through all of them here, but they do a whole list of water quality parameters. So if we do start trending the wrong direction, that the state and the utility have some data we can start looking at, and we aren't trending the wrong direction. But so it's every 2 weeks out of our high service pump station, and then we do twice annually, do it at 25 samples in our distribution system. And then this picture on the right, that's our phosphate feed system. I'm going to show you a couple of real quick slides on a couple of case studies where things went wrong, including Flint, Michigan, and then one in Washington, D.C. In both cases, I know Flint for sure, they weren't feeding a phosphate corrosion inhibitor, but Fargo has always fed that. So I've heard that if they were and Flint was just doing this, they would have probably not had the issue. And then this is another one. It's a little busy, but this is another important one. On the right here, this picture. So the lead actually doesn't, and you probably all know this maybe, but the lead doesn't come from the treatment plant. It actually comes from the service line and in the plumbing in the home. So what'll happen is if your water is corrosive coming out of the treatment plant, it'll corrode the piping or the service line, and that's where the lead comes from. It's actually not out of the treatment plant. There's been a lot of attention, especially with Flint and Washington, D.C. The approach is just reduce nationwide, just reduce the risk altogether. So just get the lead service lines out of the ground. So there's EPA, there's several organizations just looking at that. And we actually, even though our numbers are good, we actually did apply for some grant funding this past summer, and we do have it in our 2022 budget to help with lead service line replacement if we were able to get some grant funding. We weren't successful in 2021. We weren't on the high priority list. I think it's probably because we've been doing well with the sampling. And then from an inventory, this is a nice graphic that Public Works has went together with our GIS folks, and we actually know exactly how many lead service lines we have in Fargo and where they are. So that's a good step. So if we would get some grant funding, we could help with some of the replacement. Just talk about a couple of couple of case studies. So actually before Flint, there was an issue in Washington, D.C. in about 2001. In that one, they had levels like I was showing our levels were right about two parts per billion. They saw lead levels about 12 at a maximum about 1,250 parts per billion, and then their 90%, like ours was 2.4. They had a few years that they were over 40. But what they found, this one was they actually did a disinfectant change in their system, and their fix was to feed a phosphate, just like I showed you the pumps on the graphic a little bit ago. And then their lead levels went down. This is the Flint, which we're all familiar with. It really began in 2014. They saw upwards of 13,000 parts per billion lead in their water with a 90 percentile of 27. And there's a whole list, even much longer than this, of things they didn't do right in Flint. So I was interested to look at the data, and we send our water out kind of in the sweet spots to prevent this kind of thing from happening. Now, I thought I'd go through, so why are we doing pretty well with the testing in Fargo? Well, one is we got to get the water that we have a lot of technology in the treatment plant. We got to get it to the customer taps. That's really important. So we try to maintain a healthy distribution system. And back in 2005, there's a water distribution master plan, and that part of that was actually building the membrane water treatment plant. But through the changes from the 2005 master plan, the fire department actually got an ISO class 1 rating a few years ago. 40% of that, or about 40, a lot of that score is from the water system, from those improvements in the water distribution master plan. So there's two functions of the distribution. One is to get the water from the treatment plant to the taps, and then 2 is fire protection. So it's important, but the distribution is really important because we invest a lot trying to treat the water well, and then it's got to get to the taps. In addition to the EPA required testing for lead, there's a whole lot of monitoring we actually do besides that. We actually do 100 samples monthly all throughout our distribution system, in which we look at chlorine residual and bacteria. And up at the top here, for stability, and that's what we're trying to do, you have really stable water going out in the system. But if we do a good job on pH and chlorine residual, we're going to do well on a bacteria as well. And this is a picture of our Maggie in our lab. She's our microbiology person that does a lot of this testing. And then in addition, and this is not EPA required, but right down here is a control system screenshot of our actually our 3 West Fargo pump stations. So we monitor this all the time. This is not at the treatment plant. This is water out in the system, but the 3 West Fargo pump station, we're really stable in pH, and then we're really stable in chlorine residual. Those are the 2 of the keys there. And then it's another way to manage the water system is water age. So we actually fluctuate the towers up and down to make sure the water's fresh. This is the Fargo towers, and this is the West Fargo towers. We actually fluctuate them both. And then we have mixers in all our towers too to keep the water fresh. So it doesn't get a chance to degrade with chlorine residual or pH. And then this is a shot. This is really in Brenda's wheelhouse here, Brenda and Tom. But I looked at the history. This is just a dashboard of their water main management. And I looked at the history, and there were like 603 breaks in 1988, water main breaks, and through the 70s and 80s, 300 to 400 breaks per year was pretty common. They were down to 26 last year, so it's really improved. You know, and when you have a water main break, that can disrupt the water quality as well. So really, really important stuff. We also do a flushing program to make sure the water's fresh in the system, make sure all the hydrants work. Another thing, a really important tool that came along with the 2005 distribution master plan is we have a computer hydraulic model of our distribution system, which we can look at fire flows, pressures, and then the graph here on the right, we can actually simulate days and days and days of runtime and get water age out in the system. So we figure out that that's an important key for lead and health of the system. And then I think this is really the last side as far as we talked about distribution system. We also have a very sophisticated water treatment plant, and we have to have a sophisticated water treatment plant with our very challenging variable source water, and we got to try and be consistent out in the system. But this is an aerial picture of the campus now with the new water treatment plant, and this is a picture of a control room, 2 of our operators, Andrew and Scott, and we have all this information on screens right in front of them to the point of almost being obnoxious with the information to keep them focused on the water quality and the quality in our system. And then we're regulated on quite a few things in the water treatment plant, but the last phase of our process is called stabilization to make sure it's stable from a lead standpoint. Also important in the treatment plant, we look at pH, chlorine residual, phosphate addition, which we talked about in Flint, total alkalinity, which is resisting pH change. And those are some of the things we look at to make sure it's stable going out into the system. And then just a couple of items here. We don't get a whole lot of taste complaints recently, but if the water tastes different, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it, or regulatory-wise, we're fine. It's just taste issue. And then another question we get this time of year that people call us, if the water looks cloudy coming out of the tap and it clears from the bottom up, it's actually just air, the water's under pressure and just releases up, but we actually get quite a few calls on that. So just thought I'd mention it's not an issue, just air in the water. And then just in summary, and I'll turn back to Brenda here, but we've had good success since the lead and copper rule went into effect since 1992. We operate the system to prevent lead corrosion, and we're right when we look at what happened in Flint and Washington D.C., we're doing things way differently than they did from a health of our system. So, and then the City Commission, you approving our capital improvement plan, like the 2005 distribution master plan, extremely helpful in making our system work, and that you're the reason we're getting the results. So with that, I'm going to just turn it back to Brenda.
You can stay there. You can stay there in case.
Well, John, I don't know if you want to ask a simple question next time, because that's a heck of a response, but we have great city water, and Troy just hates it if I call him and say the water smells today, and he goes and searches all these paradigms, but it's true that they keep the sweet spot all the time and have done very many things to have visibility in the water, so we don't have those issues. And the city is committed to also get rid of the lead pipes as we go along as well, so we'll do that. Brenda?
With that, Troy and I'll take any questions you have. Otherwise, I have the recommended motion on your screen.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Pipcorn, you're happy with what they've come up with the CIP? It was a great report.
I'm happy about everything, Mayor. Thank you for asking.
Are you happy about the bison?
I hope we'll be happier on Friday night after the game.
Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take a moment. Thank you for this substantial information. People may not think water is important. It is important. And it's important they also trust the deliverers of the water, the sources and the providers and the people who, do all of that. And another, I think, an interesting bit of information to share that would be valuable to remind the audience again, it's not just Fargo. Could you just help us know in a summary who uses our water? And because that's a big picture also.
Right. Well, West Fargo is our regional customer, Cass Rural water customers. So we're a regional system, so it isn't just Fargo, it's West Fargo. So, as we were designing things and thinking about water stability way back, we were thinking about like the membrane plant design. We were thinking, well, that water's actually got to get through the West Fargo system and be stable too, which adds a lot more water age and things. So we were thinking about all that stuff way back when we designed the plant and thinking about our future customers.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Aye. Item 56 is the second and final reading of the adoption of the ordinance relating to massage therapy establishments. Is there a motion to waive the second reading at length of the proposed ordinance relating to massage therapy establishments that was placed in the first reading in 11/29/21 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
This is the one where we all five have to vote.
That's
yes.
right.
Otherwise, we have to read it. Okay, any discussion? Roll call vote.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. This is the motion to approve the second reading and final passage of the ordinance relating to the massage therapy establishments. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion? Roll call vote.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
No.
Strand?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. We'll take a 5-minute break and come back at 6:15. Thank you. Call the meeting back to order. Item 57, application for abatement or refund of taxes 40509 for the Travelodge Hotel at 1407 35th Street South, requesting a reduction of value for 2021 from $1,507,100 to $690,000. Mike Spolkowski, just explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, can I just interrupt real quickly? And my question is, can we combine all these? Because 57, 58, 59, and 60 are the exact same thing. And it's kind of I'm sorry to step on your lines, but if that's okay with everyone, because it's basically a formality. There's people that get compensated to do these things. And so I don't know if you were going to suggest that, so I apologize, but I think
If it's okay with the commission, that's what we'll do. So Mike, you get to explain them all, and you've made your recommendations. So
Yep, the recommendations are before you. So it'll depend on, I know that Mr. Tibbles is here to talk about them as well. So, he's going to want to address each one of them. So I'm not sure, if you want me to talk about one and then wait for a response, or because they are distinct abatements and properties. And so I'm not sure that we...
So, Mr. Chairman, could I add one more thing? Can we give him an opportunity to talk about all of them and to save us all a little bit of time? I think that'd be a good thing, if that's okay.
yes. Is Mr. Tibbetts here? Yes. So all commissioners have these in the packet. All commissioners have been reviewed the different things that you requested. Mike, your data as well. Mr. Tibbetts, if you would address each property for us and give your recommendation of why you feel you should have the abatement.
Certainly, thank you, and good evening, David Tibbles from the Frederickson and Byron Law Firm in Fargo. Here, I think, I think as has been discussed here, certainly happy to go through all of these sort of at one time. I think you have to make a separate motion on each application, but happy to kind of go through everything just from the top here, and then answer any questions you folks have. A couple quick points, just sort of overall to set the stage, let you know where we've been, and actually provide a little bit of background for our positions here today. First off, I know it's certainly not anyone's first rodeo with property tax abatements here, but I do just want to emphasize that state law allows you here tonight to essentially do one of three things. You could make my day and pick the values that are presented on the abatement applications. That's option one. Option two is you could deny the applications in full and stick with the originally assessed valuation. Option three is to pick somewhere in between. State law says that you get to pick any value within the range of evidence presented, and that's really what we see as being those three options. It might surprise you to know that my intent is not to be here and to really bang on the table and say that you have to pick option one, right? In fact, I think what I would respectfully do tonight is just propose that you pick somewhere in between. I think doing so would be a logical and also data supported approach on these applications. And really the reason for that is the values that are presented in the applications are the result of an income-based analysis that the taxpayers have performed. We certainly stand by those valuations. We think that that's a logical data-supported valuation, but we also recognize that that's just one perspective, and it's actually just one of three generally accepted ways to value real property. We think it's important. We think it's especially important for commercial properties such as these, as it's an analysis that a commercial buyer would certainly rely on and give weight to, but a buyer would certainly give weight to the other approaches as well. We know from having had the opportunity to talk with Mr. Sponskowski and the assessing department that generally what the assessing department is doing is taking the other two approaches, which is a cost-based analysis and a comparable sales-based analysis. I think those are valuable. I think they're useful, and I'm not here suggesting that you should blow that sort of thing out of the water and the income approach has to prevail. And in fact, what I would suggest is tonight for each of these properties, and I've actually got some spreadsheets here on my computer. I'm happy to kind of run some calculations for you. My proposal would be that you weigh those approaches similar to how a formal appraisal of a property would do. Like I said, I think that would be a data-supported and logical approach to this sort of thing.
Can I interrupt you just a minute?
Certainly.
Eric Johnson, would you tell us, do we have to approach each property separate?
Well, I think you should make a separate motion on each property, but okay. I think you can hear the arguments, and Mr. Tibble is suggesting you can and is agreeable to that, so there's no objection. So yes.
And then Mike, when he's suggesting income-based appraisal or valuation, I think you have some rules and regs that you have to follow, or is that not right, on assessments?
Well, as far as assessment goes, yes, he's correct that the income is one of the acceptable approaches for doing for coming up with a valuation for tax purposes. As I've stated in the past, it's not something that we use very often. And in this case, we do have some things that we could say to the income approach that was was presented to us. But I mean, it's certainly one of the ways that can be looked at. In general, for our purposes, we don't use the income approach, very rarely.
What do you use?
We use the sales measure. That's a cost approach that's measured against the sales. And so what we're doing is taking a cost approach from a national provider of cost service, Marshall and Swift, and then we're adjusting those numbers to what's happening in our market itself along the sales lines. So that's how we're determining that initial valuation. And then from there, as the years go on, and as you know, I've said in the past that we have way too many properties to look at them every year. So then sometimes we'll do an index or a market change to make up for the differences that are changed year by year, the changes that are happening.
I'm sorry, then you want to continue on this first property then? So
Yeah, I think just one, and to that point, I think just one last sort of overall point, if I may. You know, we've had the opportunity to speak with the assessing department, and here's where I do have to say we very much appreciate that. It's unfortunately been my experience that not every assessing department in North Dakota is willing to talk with taxpayers. And we had a productive discussion. We certainly didn't agree on everything. We did agree on some things, actually. One thing, item 60, the Quality Inn. I'm actually not going to stand here and contest the recommendation that Mr. Splonskowski will present. We looked that information over together. We saw that what data was supporting that. We felt that was a logical recommendation and valuation. And it's not exactly what we wanted. Not exactly the income approach valuation, but it's something that we think makes sense. Similarly, actually two properties that aren't on the agenda here tonight were initially presented
Can we just keep to item 57, please? Just speak to that.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly. Okay. 57, let's talk specifically about that. So this is the Travelodge. It's actually owned by Yoginivas LLC. And I have to just to jump very quickly to that last one. Staff will be recommending a reduction on that last property, which actually in the materials that have been presented to you, that's the building that's right to the north. It's actually right next door to the Travelodge. And all I'm here proposing is that for the Travelodge, you adopt a reduction similar to what staff will be recommending for the Quality Inn and Suites. I recognize that no two properties are exactly alike, but boy, these two are real close. I mean, just a few stats, right? One's constructed in '87, one's constructed in '88. One has 64 rooms, one has 66. 29,000 square feet versus 32,000 square feet. And not that it matters much, but I actually checked the rates the other day. If you wanted to stay at one tonight, I think as of last Friday, if you wanted to stay at one tonight, $64.99. The other one's $70. So they're very close. They're very similar properties. And all we would be asking is, for that Quality Inn, essentially staff will be recommending a 29% reduction in the valuation. I'd propose that also be applied to the Travelodge. At the very least, I think that because the Quality Inn was actually initially assessed at a higher valuation than the Travelodge, at $1.8 million compared to the 1.5 of the Travelodge. With that reduction, we think that it would make logical sense to, at the very least, reduce it to the same value of 1.33, which is what staff will be recommending.
Mike, do you want to comment?
Yep. So the difference that I'm going to point out between the Travelodge and the Quality Suites is that the Travelodge does not have any deferred maintenance. It has no condition issues. And when we get to the Quality Suites, there are condition issues. There's deferred maintenance, which is why we recommended the change we do. The Travelodge does not have those issues. It does not have condition issues. We did a walkthrough on both properties. And so it makes logical sense that a property that has condition issues would have less value in the market. But the Travelodge does not have those issues. The sales that I have pointed out to you that you have before you support the value that we have on it. Not only that, but the sale that occurred on it, there was a sale that occurred back in this last year, 2020, and for $625,000, but it was a foreclosure. And state law prohibits forced sales to be used as a measure for property tax purposes. And the value that or the original requested value is about 10% over that. But the main difference to his argument is that there is that difference in the physical features of the properties that we're just saying that the Travelodge looks similar to its comparable properties, and it doesn't warrant having that the change in value.
Do I have a motion?
What's the recommendation for 57? If you could read it or tell us what it is.
I'm
What's
sorry,
the recommendation for 57?
The recommendation is to retain the current value of $1,507,000.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Commissioner Preston?
Just a question. When you're talking about the condition of the two hotels not being comparable, or at least was considered in one and not the other, are you talking structural conditions, those
Yep.
kinds of
Yep,
major improvement conditions?
Yes, the actual physical condition of the property itself.
Okay.
Yep.
One other quick question, going back to the mayor's initial question about, are there rules and regs in regards to the income-based approach? You've always talked about you need comparable data.
Yes.
Is that a state requirement? Is it an industry standard?
It's an industry standard that if you are trying to establish market value as opposed to investment value, you have to have information from comparable properties that have sold. And that is one of the things that's missing in this income analysis that was presented.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 58. Mike?
Okay, this is the Delta Hotel. I have a big write-up here, but I can skip the detail to the finer details if you'd like me to. Okay. So this property has a value request before you. One second, bear with me here. Okay. You can see the value requested on the sheets before you. We've got a mortgage on file for $15 million for this property. It also was just rebranded and renovated in 2017 to what we would consider a higher flag. We had the Radisson before, it's the Delta now. Again, you got the comparable sales summary before you with very comparable properties. And these sold at those rates prior to being remodeled. And again, equalized, and the income approach that was presented to us was, again, without market support for the valuation.
Your comments to those?
Yeah, a couple quick comments. I think just first off, and kind of coming off of the last property, I think it's important to recognize that, you know, for purposes of setting a value, you're looking for the true and full value, which the North Dakota Supreme Court has recognized is market value, being the value that, you know, a willing buyer would pay a willing seller in an arm's length transaction. That's the standard that we've got on the table here. So I recognize that we have, you know, there are various, you know, appraisal standards, there are various assessor standards that folks are subject to, but when it comes to the fundamental point of what is the true and full value, the question is what is that market value? So that's point number one. Point number two, I think in terms of the, you know, the income approach analysis here, I again do just want to emphasize that that, city staff has not taken that approach. There are 3 approaches. We think that this is additional relevant data for you to consider. And I think in terms of the the criticism that there's no market information or no market support within within this particular income approach that the taxpayer has presented, there actually is. I mean, what we're using is a number of assumed market-based say expense numbers and other variables within the income approach based on some survey data that we've gotten from regional and national providers. So there is some of that. But I will also certainly admit that if the question is well, what are other properties in the market selling for? That's contained within the sales approach. That's not contained within our income approach, and that's certainly valid, right? So again, I say that as background, really largely just to again propose to you that I think a logical way of doing this is to weight the approaches. Like I said, I've actually got some some calculations here. I can certainly help do that. I'm not suggesting that I know precisely what the best weighting would be. Maybe it's 50-50. I think another way would be, let's weight 2/3 to what assessing staff has recommended and 1/3 to what the taxpayer is proposing. It's all relevant, and that's really my bottom line point here.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, but Mike, could you just summarize what the staff's recommendation is?
Retain 19, 20, and 21 value.
Is that it, Mike?
Yes, we're looking at 3 years there.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 59.
With that Candlewood Suites. This one also, came before the city board in the Board of Equalizations here in May. It's just the same as the Delta. It's the same approach, except for the property information has changed. Again, the sales before you, the investment value, and I guess the one thing that I would say on this one is that we've got a construction mortgage for $8.6 million on this, and a declared construction cost of $8.9 million on this one, and the current value is $4.9 million on it. And I think that's about all I have to say.
Response?
Yeah, I think my points are very similar to what I had presented with regard to the Delta. I think another additional thing just to consider here is, I know, staff is presenting some, some comparable sales, but also keep in mind that some of those comparable sales, they only go up to 2019. Now, of course, by the time that we're talking about the 2021 valuation, it's a very different market for hotel properties. So one thing to consider, and frankly, I think another arrow in the quiver of the income approach. It would pick up, say, that downturn in value with regard to the pandemic.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 60, this is going to be the abatement fund taxes 4516 Quality Inn and Suites. And this is a request to a reduction of value of $1,866,600 to $640,000.
And again, on this one, we've already touched on it. Just a reduction to the motion before you. There was extensive deferred maintenance on the property, as well as some damage that had, I think by the time we had gone through, it had been fixed, but they had some problems with some issues of people coming in there that weren't supposed to be there. And so we agreed that this should be reduced for value. Obviously not to the extent that they were presenting, but enough to recognize the damage that has been done to the building.
Your comments on this?
Just a word of thanks to staff for meeting with us, for proposing that recommendation. We really do appreciate that willingness to speak with the taxpayers.
Thank you. Motion?
I'll make the suggested motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Recommendation to adopt the Economic Development Incentives Policy and Guidelines. Jim Gilmore to explain.
Thank you. We had gone over this in detail 4 weeks ago at a special noon meeting, so I won't spend a lot of time on each of these slides, but this is a recommendation from the Tax Exempt Review Committee for this updated policy that deals with all of our property tax exemption. There's also a proposed change in the name of the committee, as well as a bit on the committee makeup. These are the different incentives. Again, I'm just going to really go through these fast unless you have any questions. They go to a variety of different, some benefit property owners, some benefit renters, some benefit businesses. We had gotten a lot of comments from you throughout this process. Then the kind of different types of policies that we address with this committee. One is residential new housing exemption. Secondly, the remodeling policy. Third, the annuity for really job creation and different types of pilots. I do want to point out under the job creation, one of the things we did change in the scoring system was since our last meeting, was more emphasis on higher wages. Now you get more negative points if you're below $13 an hour, as well as negative points if you're between $13 and $15 an hour. So we kind of followed up from your meeting and made that change. You can see on this table where you would receive negative points if you're below $15 an hour. Previously, the 13 to 15 was, I believe, 0 points. We've got the lower income rental housing. You see a few of those over the years. The core neighborhood, one of the major changes was looking at expanding this beyond the university mixed use zoning district. Then the downtown housing pilot. One of the questions Commissioner Strand had was in terms of inclusionary housing. I think the housing study needs to precede any changes to the policy. Right now, we don't really have a good idea of our housing needs and how to target that. The TIF policy, we really haven't changed much since 4 weeks ago. The public-private partnership also, these are things that you would initiate. One of the changes we'd had, Commissioner Preston, you had suggested we have some monitoring or actually reporting. And so what we added into the policy was that the city would summarize economic development incentives each year via an annual report. You receive some of this information in your assessor's annual report, but we try to have a special report from the Economic Development Committee on the incentives that would look at what did we do last year and what's the current status of all of these incentives. So that's a change in the policy from 4 weeks ago. The monitoring, this is something you had asked that we follow up on. And so this is covered, I think, fairly well in the policy. I'm going to have Joe Race talk about a little bit about how they can help us do the monitoring on the job creation ones as they get closer to the end here. The committee makeup, this would be a change in the committee makeup. Right now, there are 2 city commissioners, 3 citizen members, and 2 staff members. What we do is the staff members would stay on, but they'd be non-voting, and then we'd add 2 citizen members to the committee, more in lines with what you did with liquor control and more in lines with what our other committee makeup typically is. The job creation projects, you had asked for us to have a report actually last month on where we're at on this. We're both the assessor's office and the finance office is continuing to monitor these. We're trying to figure out which ones we have business incentive agreements with, how many jobs have been created. That is not yet complete. They've been busy with other aspects of it, but going into the future, the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC is willing to work with us since they continue to have contact with primary sector businesses. And because of change in our policies, now we're going to focus exclusively on primary sector businesses when it comes to job creation. You can see all the different projects that were done in the last 7 years. You would ask for that information. So we've kind of got them listed and inventoried. Some of these have expired, but we're going to certainly complete that work. There's other pilots that were approved, for market rate apartments. These were all monitored at the end of them, such as Woodrow, which you saw earlier tonight. So we always know that those were actually completed and very little changes on an apartment building after the completion. So we'll have you recommend a motion is to adopt the economic development incentive policy as presented. But I'd like to have Joe Raso talk about how they're going to help us monitor these and how they have a software that can help with both the monitoring and the reporting. Joe?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Mayor and Commissioners, a couple of years ago, the EDC started to take a high-tech and high-touch approach to our outreach to our primary sector companies, and we utilized the software system Salesforce, but we did some special development to that system so that as we're collecting strategic information from our primary sector companies, as Jim and the team knows, we have the ability to connect city staff into that system as it relates to the companies within the city of Fargo. And so as you were having this discussion about updating the incentive policies, we talked as a staff, especially as it relates to tracking the job creation and the investment that's being made, and realized that we likely, I won't say for certain just yet, because we're working in what's called our sandbox within our software system to make sure that we could pull out that data that you're requesting on an annual basis from those companies. We already have those conversations with them, and because we're doing that, could we set up a trigger within our system that at a point in time in the future, and before you need that data, we can trigger those companies, ask for that information, aggregate it up and share it with the city staff and then with all of you. So the process is underway, and we're hoping over the course of let's say the next 30 to 60 days in conversation with the team that we'll be able to establish that and provide that data to you.
Very good. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. Jim and all of your team, there are lots of moments in time where we're not all on the same page. And for a few years, I've been looking for us to have this broader discussion about how do we get on the same page so that when we advertise to the public, we have incentives and enhancements for their business plans, that we can stay true to our word and actually honor it when it gets to our table. And I've had some moments where I just don't quite always agree with some of the minute aspects of the policies. So folks have seen me vote against some TIFs and several pilots. That said, I'm going to give this a try going forward. I don't think that there's anything I've advocated for that wasn't listened to and heard and as best possible implemented. So the topics of workplace safety, we got there. We got it in there. The issues of living wages, it's in there. We'll see how it works. Claw back, look back, that was essential, I think, in all of our perspectives. That's in there. Looking forward, I have still a desire to see where affordable housing issues land, especially in at-risk neighborhoods, and the topic of inclusionary housing. But I'm willing to give this a chance to see if we can aim for that and see where this goes and what our needs are going forward. I think that's worth gambling on, and it's a good gamble. Bottom line, I'm now able to vote for these policies almost across the board, almost always. And I've been looking forward to the policies driving my votes and on our ability to input to the policies. And of course, we have a new commission election next June, and we may have some new commissioners, we may not, but we'll have another chance every 2 years to look at these. But thank you. And to all of your departments and to all of our people who put their input and effort into this to help hear us, to help balance the needs of everybody. And you've won me over. These new policies are going to be leading to a major shift in some of my votes because I believe we're going the right direction and I believe our input is in there and I think we're on solid ground. So thank you, Jim, and to all of your people who helped with this.
Commissioner Preston.
Yeah, I'm planning to also vote to support this, but I want to put a caveat in here. I would like to see this come back when we have the ROI study completed, because I think that is one big piece that needs to be added into these policies. We don't have that at this current time, so I'm good with going forward with this, but I'll try to bring it back. If it doesn't come to us, I'll work on getting it back.
Well, that's an excellent idea, because I think when they come back, they may have some suggestions. That's really what we've asked them, is how well do they work, and is there something better? So it would seem like a good idea when that time comes. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston? Aye. Garrick?
No.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 62, update on election and city governance task force. We did a application process that ended on November 24th for the nine position board and received only 5 applicants for the position and 2 late ones at the time. We did not seem to receive enough applicants for the 9 seats, so it's not consistent with what we wanted to go forward with. In discussion with the team, we recommend that the election and city governance task force be delayed until June of 2022 elections are over. And at that time, the newly city commission can discuss if the task force remains a priority, and if it is, what model should be used to solicit interest in the task force. So that's a recommendation from us at this time. Mike, do you have anything else you want to add? No? And there's no action item on this, but if I don't have enough people to sit the committee, I don't know that I can go ahead, so. Item 63, applications for property tax exemption and improvements made to buildings. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
And just for the public, 26 people applied. We used the whole alphabet on this one, so it appears that a lot of people are remodeling out there, so I'm really pleased to hear. You have my recommendations for the appointment to the Board of Health. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Commissioner Strand, it's holiday time and you usually have either a birthday, somebody's important date, or something going on. You want to report to us?
There's a couple twins out there. There's two twins that have a birthday the 19th. So Bruce Grubb, would you tell your brother happy birthday as well as yourself on the 19th of December?
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.